Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to the Wombo Combo Podcast. I'm BreakyCPK, as always, joined by BSJ, and we got a lot to talk about. The MDL Major wrapping up, of course. Excited to be here, as always. BSJ, how you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Ready for some new patch.
That's the important thing.
Yes, of course. That's the most exciting part about the end of this major, let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, TNC winning it and everything, whatever, guy. It is funny to see how that happens whenever a patch is set to come out, when people believe it's set to come out after a big event. How, as soon as the event's over, I don't even think the top post on Reddit was actually congrats TNC. It was, all right, it's been literally a minute since the major finished. Where the hell's our patch, Gaben? Like, that just shows you where the community's at. It's understandable. Obviously, there's a lot more than just the esports side of things, but that's what we're focused on, is competitive. But obviously, the patch certainly affects, and we are all excited to see Earthshaker and Morphling combination no more, as I'm sure that will be at least part of it. And we're going to give our take in terms of maybe our expectations later on in the show. Again, not going to take forever. This ain't no Purge podcast here, but we'll give our at least a quicker take on what we think may be coming, and by the time you're even hearing this, maybe the patch will be out. Because right now it's set to come out tomorrow, I believe, right?
Yeah, okay. That's what they said. So let's, fingers crossed that is reality.
Yeah, that's going to be something. It's definitely set to be a pretty big patch, so we'll see what it entails. But again, the MDL officially wrapping up last night. Well, kind of last night. I mean, obviously being in China, more a day and a half ago, I guess you could say. But Sunday night over there, and as mentioned, in case you haven't heard, TNC. We were right, BSJ. We were right.
I was right all along. I had a few teams that slipped through my predictions. Like, I didn't expect Liquid to do as well as they did. J-Storm taking that winner's bracket series did a little bit better than they did. But I'm going to take credit where it's due for me, because I said the top four teams were IG, EG, TNC, and Vici. So, people were saying the results were supposed to be like unexpected or whatever, or like maybe there's some variance because all the tier 1 teams are gone, somebody else can win. But I think with the tier 1 teams gone, all that means is that the tier 1-ish teams or tier 2 teams become the tier 1 teams. So that's all that really happens. I think that there's pretty distinct rungs on the ladder of professional Dota. And I think in this tournament that kind of showed. I'm really happy that I was like really confident that TNC was going to pull through, but I also knew that there was a chance they were going to be like the wings of the major before TI6, where they just lose. And so I'm glad that they followed through on my expectations of them. Yeah,
they did have to come to the lower bracket. Vici Gaming, of course, putting them in the lower bracket after beating them 2-0. And I did have Vici Gaming in the final. I was sold on this team from the very beginning as one of my top 3 with EG and Gambit. We don't talk about. That happened, but it didn't. Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
Unfortunately, I will say about Invictus Gaming. Now, again, obviously, there's a lot of close calls in these tournaments, and they did ultimately move on, but they shouldn't have. Beast Coast actually should have.
Beast Coast gave them a nice little present early for Christmas this year. Yeah, they were up by what, like 12,000 gold with a Drow lineup, and then just died on 4 heroes and lost. Like, they were up 12,000 gold on Beast Coast, and the game was over like a minute and a half later. Mm-hmm. Like, it wasn't even like they lost a fight and then slowly lost the game. The fight was lost, and then they lost. Like, they actually were just. They took a fight outside of base, like on the other team side of the map, and then IG won. It was that was like one of the weirdest, such a Beast Coast ending. Beast Coast was a slight disappointment for me, but they are pretty unpredictable wild card. And I think this tournament, they kind of proved that they belong in like what will happen is for the next major, every team that placed here will kind of slide down 4 places. That's going to be how I look at it. You just put LGD, Secret, X Liquid, you put all of them back in the equation and you just slide everyone back. So I was kind of putting Beast Coast as like top 12 in the world in this tournament. They've got 8th, and they could have gotten higher. So I think that they're in contention to be one of the top 8 teams in the world. So I think they were right about where I expected them to be. But obviously going out in quite the Beast Coast fashion.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. As you mentioned, again, getting top 8 at a major still definitely deserves an applause of sorts, but certainly they could have gone further, and that was something. But Invictus Gaming, they moved on and went all the way to the lower finals. Of course, that's where they were eliminated by TNC. But again, IG beating EG in the match before on top of that. And but we're going all over the place with the major, understandable, but to keep it aligned here, I wanted to actually focus more back on TNC and what this really means for Southeast Asian Dota as a whole, because SCA Dota, up until I from what I was looking at, and I saw a couple other people suggest this, so I'm going to go ahead and say it, I don't believe SCA Dota has won an actual major event, obviously not TI itself or any really major tournament on the DPC circuit and the majors even before. So this really is the biggest Southeast Asian Dota victory to date.
I think Mineski won a major like 2 years ago, the first one though. And it was like the same story where there were several big teams not in the tournament. So I think like this one still holds a lot more meaning than that one. But at the same time, it's not going to mean much if they get 12th of the next major. Like nobody's going to remember this. I mean, they're going to remember this because they qualified for TI, but they're not going to remember this in the sense that they'll think TNC is one of the best teams in the world. If once all the good teams come back, TNC just gets bottom 4 or whatever, So this is a big step for the SCA Dota region, but I think TNC really the same idea for the South American region, where it's not enough to just do it once. Make sure you. I mean, they don't have to get first next major, but maybe at least top 8, top 6 would be
not
pretty important.
Yeah. Yeah, it's early in the season, and now, okay, so yeah, it is being brought up, so I guess it's not the very first, but it's still, it's obviously been very rare, only once before then at that point. But SCA Dota has been a region that early on within the Dota 2 competitive scene, it was what I really consider the South America of nowadays, where they were a region that wasn't really respected the most. They were definitely a growing region, and I think it's fair to say today we certainly have top-tier competition as shown from the MDL tournament. TNC is there, but kind of going off what you're saying right there as far as, how do they follow this now? And it is interesting because you win a major, you figure you would suggest that right now they're the best team in the world, but not necessarily. I can't sit here and say that. Now, obviously, there is the asterisk there. There is the fact that 4 of the top teams weren't there at the event. But I almost even have trouble still, and I don't know what it is, but I have trouble even almost putting them as a top 5 team right now, because you got the 4 others, and then you still have the EG, the Vici Gaming, who they just beat, I understand, but I am not necessarily still sold on them going into the next major and keeping this momentum up. Now, they could just not even qualify for another major and I think still qualify for TI because of the amount of TPC points they've gotten. But it's just something about this team. They seem like one of these very flashy, in-the-moment teams, but the consistency, I'm not sold it's necessarily going to be there advancing forward. Obviously, it can be proven wrong, but I don't know what it is. It just doesn't feel like a team that I necessarily see continuing this momentum, basically.
I've been wrong either way about teams before. Like, I really doubted Beast Coast going into TI or Infamous at the time, and like moving forward, they've kind of proven me wrong. I've really doubted, or I've like believed in certain teams and they haven't pulled through. But I believe in TNC. I think that they are definitely even potentially top 4 for the regular season, just because teams like OG don't really show up until TI.
Yeah,
I think the Chinese powerhouses generally don't look nearly as good as they do at TI during the rest of the year. So I think that this team looks motivated. I think that they didn't really have one specific play style. They had whatever the hell was popular in the meta. They just did it, and they did it well, and it was kind of just random stuff. And I think that shows the team's just interpreting the patch and doing what they think is best for the patch, and not so much that they got lucky with the patch or whatever. Certain teams just the stars align where certain heroes are really good that they play really well. I think for them, they just knew how to play the patch by being a good team, not by getting lucky or anything like that. So I'm gonna put my eggs in their, or my eggs in their basket or whatever. As of now, unless obviously I'm ready to just watch them flop somehow, because Dota is such a weird game like that in the terms of the team dynamic. But moving forward, I'm a TNC believer. I was a TNC believer the second I saw them at ESL. Yeah. They won this major, and now I want to see it carry on in the next patch.
Well, it kind of, for me, it goes back to that. So glad you brought that with ESL, where, again, you and I were having the conversation that I just didn't think that event wasn't the biggest deal to win that event. Obviously, yes, it's still a big deal, but at the same time, it wasn't necessarily something that I saw as, oh my God, TNC is here to play. Now, of course, here they are winning the major, and it's like, they're trying to prove to me what more can they do. And to be fair, they can't. I mean, they won the major, but I do look at the road that they took to get there. They had to defeat Alliance in the first round. Obviously, I don't consider a top 8 team even necessarily in this major. J-Storm on top of that, which was this dark horse team that kind of came out of nowhere for a lot of us. They had
to be fair, they slaughtered them, but yeah.
Yes, they did. They did slaughter them. And then they lost to Vici Gaming, as I mentioned, initially. Now, again, they had to then climb back. And yes, IG obviously looking good. And then defeating Vici Gaming in the grand finals. So yes, they deserved to win the tournament. It's not their fault that they maybe had an easier road initially. But I still look at that, and that tells me that I just can't get behind. It feels like maybe a team in the past, they really used the safe lane Night Stalker and caught people off guard. They abused the Morphling Earthshaker combination quite a bit as well. So that's where I continue to come from in terms of just not sold on them being a team that can consistently keep it moving forward. But as I go back to, they don't necessarily need to, because you win a major at the season, you pretty much do secure a spot. And I saw people doing the math. I think it's even top 3 at a major potentially just secures your spot at TI anyways, moving forward. So looking
how do I word this, right? So a lot of people, I think as spectators, they look at the results. Like when you look at ESL and they won and stuff, like honestly, none of the other teams at ESL looked that great to me. But the way TNC won that tournament and most of their matches is what impresses me. It's like somebody's making the point that they beat Gambit, who got bottom 4 at this major, to win that ESL tournament. And to me, it's like saying you're unimpressed with that is the same as being impressed that J-Storm got 6th. I'm not impressed J-Storm got 6th. Like they managed to squeak through to the winner bracket. And then they took a kind of flukish win over Team Liquid, and then they got 6th. Like, it doesn't take that much for a team to make it drastically higher when it takes one series, right? Like,
sure.
I'm not saying J-Storm's bad, but they're definitely not top 6 in the major, and stuff like that happens. But TNC at the ESL was so dominant, and then the big thing for me when they played Vici Gaming in the winter bracket final was they lost, and 2-0. They were playing their popular strategies, and then they literally came back the next day and they said, we're going to pick the same shit. We're going to redo it. And basically they had different bans and different pick orders, and they beat them with it. So it was like, for me, that says a lot about a team, that they have like a popular strategy. The opponent countered it. They dealt with it. And then you said, okay, what did we allow? What can we do? And then over the course of one day, they reversed it onto that team and just honestly dumpstered them with it. So that's a big deal for me. The fact that team like that is what the best teams do in the world, right? You've seen the best teams in the world, even TI7 Liquid, like dropping their first series in the winter bracket, like they will lose series. Like that is something the best teams in the world still do. I mean, Team Secret at TI9, they dropped first round, I believe, and then they went all the way to 3rd place or 4th or whatever. So that for me was a big deal. Even more so securing how much I believe in TNC was them losing and then coming back and beating them. Not only beating them, but with the exact same strategies that they lost with previously. And I think at a patch, your ability to identify what your team does best and then make it unbeatable is really important for any team to be successful. It doesn't necessarily matter what you do. It's just that you have to be so good at whatever you specifically like as a team that you can continue to refine it, right? You discover it. They discovered Morphling Shaker, and they clearly were the most knowledgeable of it over the course of the entire tournament in terms of how to beat it, how to fix it if they lost with it. That's hard. That's easier said than done. Like that is really hard. Yeah. So I know I said a lot about it, but I think that is flies under the radar for a lot of casual viewers.
Okay. One last point on that before moving on topics. I guess it is kind of similar. Yeah, I know you even brought it up too with looking at a team like OG and even winning TI in their case. And after the first TI that OG had won, TI 8 right there, I stood strong by the statement that OG is not the best team in the world. They just simply got hot at the right time. They were great on that specific patch, and thus they won TI. Not to take away anything from what they did, but in my mind, they were not the best team in the world. But sometimes that doesn't matter sometimes, as long as you're just good during those dates and those couple of days even, then that can get you victorious at what you need to do in the end. So that to me feels like what TNC did right here at this major to an extent. Obviously on a much smaller
I know what
scale,
you mean. There is a bit of luck involved with who figures out the patch the best, but you don't win a major tournament unless you're tier 1. Like, you just don't. Like, you can't fluke your way. Like, when people talked about them kind of fluking TI8, what that means to me is that they were effectively caliber-wise the 6th best team in the tournament, and they managed to get first. Like, there's no you were the 15th best team and you got lucky with the patch and now you win. That doesn't happen in Dota. There's too big of a discrepancy in tier 1 to tier 3 teams in order to overcome it, just with understanding of a patch. Because especially in the course of TI, I think it's quite easy for a team that is maybe even bottom 4 caliber to get top 6 if they know something nobody else does. But what ends up happening is over the course of the tournament, everyone realizes what they know that nobody else did, and then they just beat them at their own game because they're better players. But OG, same with TNC here, especially with TNC here, everyone knew exactly what was broken coming into this major. Everyone knew. Yeah. And yet TNC was by far the best team at it, like uncomparable in terms of their quality of Earthshaker Morphling compared to anyone else in the entire tournament. And with OG specifically, God, it was so funny. I paneled with Bulba at TI8 right after he lost to OG in the loser bracket final, and it was during the finals. And for me, it's hard to describe, but I was like, dude, this OG team is legit. Like, what the hell? I thought they were so good. And he's like shit talking them and they're getting lucky and stuff. I'm like, are you watching these games? Like, you can't just get lucky to come back in these games. The way they're coming back was absolutely insane. And if you watch it back, it was so methodical.
Yeah, it was
just beautiful to watch. And that's why for me, it's so funny to see a team like OG last year just kind of do whatever in terms of during the season. They come back for TI9 and they just shit on everybody.
It's something. That's a whole nother breed.
We're going to leave it there because there's so much, like you said, there's so much you can talk about here. But man, I think TNC is... I hope that they do the equivalent of what OG did from TI8 to
I do want to be clear. I do not think OG was lucky. I just think they played very well at the right time. That's how I look at it.
Stars do need to align in some way to win TI.
But they clearly are good enough to be able to compete against the best of the best, and they were at those times. So similar to TNC.
I wasn't mainly calling you out for saying that. It's like a lot of people who say like they got like the fluke TI, that's
I hate that too.
Yeah.
It wasn't a fluke. That was not a fluke at all. All right. So another topic that I wanted to go over was, of course, EG and ultimately how they finished. And I mean, you had the interesting prediction in our last podcast that you thought that they would even get knocked down to the lower bracket by IG initially, and then even
they ended up losing to IG, so they just did it in the wrong order, man.
They kind of did that, but they did get all the way to 4th place. But as you mentioned, they lost to IG 2-1. They also lost to Vici to get knocked down to the lower bracket 2-1 as well. So is this something that EG can say we're proud of, or being a tournament where the top 4 teams weren't there to finish only 4th place? It does feel a little low in some sense as well. So what do you think?
I just want to say about them getting 12th, my prediction. I wanted to be bold because I thought with the exact matchups they got were IG, I think, and then they dropped to play Alliance if they had lost to IG. I thought that was the one way they'd ever get 12th. I didn't think they were 12th, but I thought it could happen there. I think overall, EG just didn't look nearly as solid as the other teams. I think they haven't come together as a unit. I think the individual players are sick and they have so much upward potential. But when I watched them in the group stage, when I look at the player roster, I know they're a top 4 caliber team, so that doesn't really surprise me at all. But it also sad to say, I didn't think they had a chance to win in hell coming out of the group stage. Like, I didn't think they would ever win this tournament. So I think they have a lot of positivity moving forward, but the cult behind EG, like the fan base of EG, is just so weird. That they're going to look at this and just laugh or whatever. At some point, I have to believe that it's gotten to Arteezy's head that all of these people are just saying 3G, 4G, you know, the fact that they always get third and fourth. How can a team of this good of players never beat fourth place or third place? Like, I don't understand. I don't get it. So, it's such a weird phenomenon.
On that note, I think it's actually a disappointing finish because, as I say, you're looking at the top 4 teams not even being there in a lot of ways. So you could almost see this as an 8th place finish if you want to look at it from that perspective. And that just is unacceptable for a team like EG, who's putting, again, we don't know the contracts behind the scenes necessarily, but I would put a fair bet that they probably have the best contracts, if not one of the best out of any team in Dota 2.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Maybe, I mean, obviously there's some Chinese teams that I'm sure have some good ones as well, but EG certainly is up there. And so we're talking about the expectations are high, and I understand that they are a newer team together and everything like that, but this is a team that should have at least finished top 3. They frankly should have beat IG. They are better than them. They, on paper, are better than them, and that's why they are on a team like Evil Genius is. So they're on the kind of the other side for me, where a very disappointing performance, and they need to step it up. I mean, moving forward. And yes, there's people that are suggesting making excuses for them that, oh, they didn't boot camp, blah, blah, blah. Guys, EG, this organization has so much more tools at its disposal to use in the first place that that whole argument is just frankly stupid to me, because you're looking at teams that aren't EG that have to, you know, kind of do their own things, whether it's their own kind of smaller boot camps or just even play online together just for simply practice. I just don't see that as a legitimate excuse. That this is a squad that needs to be able to put in the effort and time, which I'm sure they are, but getting a 4th place finish at a major that was, you know, missing out on some top-tier teams is not a good performance. So I think EG should come out of this fairly disappointed. But again, it is a long season ahead. They still got some decent DPC points out of it, but they do need to step it up in my mind.
My major problem with EG every patch has been that they're all like incredibly good players. Like, they are really incredibly good players, but I've never seen them as a team that just knows the patch as well or better than anyone else. I feel like they're just copying other people. I think that's always been Bulba's strategy. I think that they kind of just do whatever's best, and not once has EG in the last 2 years drafted a draft where the other team's like, whoa, we didn't expect that.
Yeah.
And you're just not going to beat teams of similar caliber. Like fucking, excuse my language, TNC just picks like first pick Disruptor randomly. This hero hasn't seen play for the last 8 months, and they're just first picking Disruptor. And then suddenly every other team is first picking Disruptor. Like, never does EG define the meta. Like, yeah, there's teams that have to specifically deal with the RTZ Arc Wardens and stuff, but name one patch or name one tournament where you watched EG's drafts and you're just like, wow. You know, it just, that for me is why they get 3rd or 4th every tournament, because they're very good players and they'll understand the meta. The 4th best out of anybody. Like, it doesn't matter how many teams are in the tournament. I think if you, like, your argument that they're 8th effectively, I almost just disagree. I think that they're permanently the 4th place team in the scene. Like, they've proven that they elevate their level of play to get to a certain point, because they take the patch strategies and win with it. But then they get down to the final end of the tournament where these teams that truly understand and formed the meta just know the meta better than they do. So they make it to these like final matches, and then the teams that are top 3 just beat them. Those like 3 teams kind of rotate, obviously, amongst like the 8 or 9 big teams. But it's funny. I don't think it's been the same story every tournament for the last 2 years for EG. It really has, if you think about it. They always get to top 4, and then maybe they'll get one more series out of it, but the other team just looks like they know the meta better. They don't look like a better team necessarily. Mm-hmm. They just look like they know the meta better. I think IG played this meta really well. I think they had some really flashy picks. That emo Zeus pick into Ember Like Abed didn't expect that at all, and then he just solo kills him at 4 minutes. Like everyone's like, "What is this Zeus pick? That's a terrible pick." And then you watch it play out. Like this Zeus hero is super squishy, and then every time they went on him, he got Centaur ultied, and then they turned the fight. It was like, that's the kind of stuff where that gotcha is so. The EG will never do that. Like I haven't seen them do that in a draft in the last 2 years. So
yeah.
Sorry for my rant, but I do believe EG has gone into this comfort zone that leaves them getting third or fourth every tournament and no better.
That seems like, I mean, we're on the same page, honestly. And I honestly think I would have to feel that there's a lot of the fan base out there that has to feel a similar way. At least there are those delusional fans out there, as always, for any organization or traditional sports, even that, they always think, make excuses for them and everything. But I think people are getting tired of, EG being hyped up as this top team of the best of them every single year, and the talent that's there, yet they cannot seem to just to win it all. We're not even talking about TI. We're talking about even these majors along the line here. So
is there a tournament they've gotten worse than sixth either? Like they just always get sixth to third. Like they're all like. I just remember at the major last year I was casting in Malaysia, and there was like the history of this player's like tournament results, and it was Arteezy legitimately like 9 in a row third place. I was like, what the hell? I mean, it's a meme, but it's actually so true.
You kind of wonder how the players feel about it as well. I'm sure there is some disappointment there. You'd hope there's disappointment there. I'll put it that way.
Exactly.
Okay, so enough about EG. As far as other things in the major goes, any teams that went beyond our expectations, I suppose. I mean, for me, J-Storm, I think off the bat certainly is that team that. And now, to be fair, I kind of said going in, this is either a team that can see going last place spot or even a top 4 potential team. Now they actually finished in the middle. They happen to get 6th place, 5th, 6th technically. Ultimately knocked out by IG and getting sent down initially, of course, by TNC as we mentioned. But I do think that this is a J-Storm squad. A 6th place finish in the first major of the season. They'll take it, and they were impressive at times, I suppose.
Oh, I mean, they'll absolutely take it. I just think that when I say no team overperformed, I just think that the middle bracket of this, like you have the top 4, top 5, and then the bottom 4, bottom 5, and everyone in the middle was kind of close. So the dominoes just kind of fell where they did. If anything for overperformances, it'd be Team Liquid. I really expected them to bomb out in this tournament based on what they did at ESL. It wasn't because of their result at ESL, but it was because when I watched their games at ESL, they just looked terrible. Like they looked lost in the patch. Like they looked like this patch they were lost, and I was like, they'll probably come back next patch, but this patch in particular looked rough. So I like to see that was actually really promising for me for Team Liquid, that they looked just lost 2 weeks ago. And now they looked like they had formed some sort of identity and a winning strategy that, what did they get, 7th, 8th, or 5th, 6th?
7th, 8th, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's not the most amazing finish, but the fact is they did look pretty decent. So for me, moving forward, I would like to see them prove that they're better than like 12th in the world. That's what I would like to see from them.
The caliber's there to be a top 10 team, honestly, in my mind, at least.
It is.
It certainly is when it comes to their play, and I think they've shown that in competition against some of these top teams that they played throughout these tournaments. I mean, early on in the games, it feels like that they actually play very well in the laning phase, but then it's just the later parts, things can stumble. You did mention you were strong, you're very adamant on the current patch, maybe not being the best for them as well. So, hey, last I heard, there's a new patch just around the corner. And obviously, a lot can happen from that, too. So, we'll see for look at I definitely agree there. So, and then I think a good way to finish talking about the MDL Majors, almost kind of setting up the next one, really, that will be coming up, of course, in the sense of it feels like, at least now we don't have 100% confirmation on this, but it feels like that Valve is going to be making adjustments from major to major depending on how the results finish from the regions, what I'm getting at for the slot allocation. Of course, we talked about for this major, it was interesting in how it played out. Obviously, only the 2 European spots, the 3 NA spots, but a lot of that came down to, well, when you have 3 European teams not participating, you have LGD not participating from China, but mainly those 3 European teams, that seemed to make Valve go, well, we should probably, make some adjustments right here. So I would believe that they possibly are going to be be doing the same? And if so, how do we think those slot allocations should look? Now, moving forward to this next major, which, by the way, the qualifiers, I believe, are set to start next weekend even, if not early next
Might
week.
even be sooner. It's very soon. I think it's like 3 days on the new patch or something, 2 days on the new patch.
Jeez.
So
that's
pretty
going to
brutal
be intense, yeah.
that way. Did you want to go first in terms of slot allocation? I think I'm curious to see what you think here.
Well, so if that is the case, that they're going to be playing the game of making adjustments, I personally would lean towards the only change that I would make is taking one away from Southeast Asia. I honestly wasn't even sure about how I felt about 3 Southeast Asia in the first place for this major, but taking one away from them, giving it to Europe, and then having it stand as was before. So keeping NA at 3, you have Europe at 3, you have China at 3, and then the other, so Southeast Asia, CIS, and South America would be 2. So we're not talking about a dramatic change, but I know that there's some that would suggest 2 for NA, but you had Evil Geniuses and J-Storm. They obviously the surprise team for a lot of people. They got top 6. I feel like you have to respect the results from NA this tournament, and you have to give them 3 spots moving forward. So that's how I would do it. Take the one from SEA, give it to Europe, then have that 3-3-3, 2-2-2.
My only counter argument, I think that you have very good points about that, and I think it's completely realistic that they do that approach. Something that I like to think is that you take the top placing teams in the tournament and you say this region gets this many entries and +1. Because what I mean by that is that you have the teams that played well in the tournament, and then you don't want to make it so that they're the only teams getting slots to the next major. You want to make it so that the best teams in the world plus teams that want to get a chance or that deserves a chance to prove themselves, make it into the tournament. So the way I look at this, for me, that I think would be the ballsy prediction that I don't think Valve will do, but I honestly think it's arguable they should, is they should give 4 slots to China. I think it's kind of BS for China to have IG be the 3rd best team and they only get 3 slots. Because at this point you have Vici Gaming getting 2nd, IG getting 3rd, and you have LGD coming back. And you're telling me no other team from China is supposed to qualify for this major? I think that's almost a travesty. And in the sense that J-Storm got 6th, but I don't really think that they fall into the category of, they're a good enough team where in NA they're unbeatable in the qualifiers. So you have EG that takes that 1 slot, and then you give the extra slot to somebody else, right? Meaning that you have the one team that's definitely going to perform well in the tournament, +1. In China, you have 3 +1. That's my opinion. I think Europe's obviously going to get 3, like you said.
Yeah.
I'm fine with 2 in SCA because there's only 1 clear good team in SCA. 2 in South America, same thing. There's only 1 clear good team in South America. And then in NA, I really only think it's EG. I think J-Storm, they got 6th, but like I said, that's them, in my opinion, fluking a series over Team Liquid. That's all that boiled down to. And I think if J-Storm played against TNC, Vici, or EG, they would have gotten absolutely slaughtered in the upper bracket, and they would have lost in the lower bracket and gotten 12th, just like I expect them to get. So I hate to be rooting against NA and, pro China, whatever. I think China deserves 4 slots. I think the 4 of the best teams in the world are from China. So
you would do 4, 3, and then 2 for the rest.
Yeah, 4 China, 3 European, and then 2 for the rest of the regions. Yes.
Yeah, like you said, I guess it's fair to bring that up, but I don't know if I see Valve doing that simply because from the business perspective, of course.
No, I don't think they're going to. Yeah, I'll be clear. I think they should.
There is that argument, but okay. So even with the should argument, I don't know if I'm 100% sold on, because when you start playing this game of hypotheticals of the feel game in terms of seeding for specific tournaments, and it can get a little dangerous. I do feel like you have to take facts into consideration. And again, fact is 2 North American teams finished top 6 at this tournament. So not giving them 3 spots, it just seems like you're taken away from facts. Now, obviously, there's even traditional sports out there, the college football system, for example, that's absolutely ludicrous and ridiculous, and it is all about feeler in a lot of way. Now, there's reasons for that, but I'm more of the side of I like to work off the facts and the results given. For the most part, I do understand the feeler side of it, too. That has to be at least a little part of it as well. But the facts suggest that NA deserves 3 in my mind. And again, with what we've seen for Valve in the past, I do feel like it's going to be the 3-3-3, 2-2-2. It would be for me to see a region get 4 and thus even reducing another region on top of that further. It would have to be overwhelmingly clear. Like, it would have had to be at least 3 of the top 4 teams from China in this tournament to even get me personally thinking about that. And obviously, there were 2 top 4 teams in IG and Vici Gaming, but I can't get behind that idea personally that a region deserves 4, just because of feeling. They are arguably the best region in the world. I am not denying that, but I can't give them 4.
What's fascinating about your point, though, is if we were to do that hypothetically, and you go into the next tournament, and anyone other than EG beats one of those 4 teams from North America, meaning like if there's 4 teams from China and you have the second team from North America, say it's JStorm, if they were to place higher than any of the 3 from China, then you could make the point, like the core 3 that I was talking about, right? Like this 3+1 scenario where it's like you have the teams that you think are the best, and then you get another team to have a chance. It's like if JStorm were to place higher than any of those 3, then you could argue to me that they don't deserve 4 slots. But like, I know what you're saying. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate in terms of like something I don't think they'll do, but honestly is for the betterment of the competition, I think would be the case. Because if America deserves 3 slots, then the second best American team should beat the third best Chinese team. Like that's what it would, in my mind, be.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think I've said enough. It's kind of a weird subject, right?
I mean, yeah. If we're being totally like, let's really look at these top teams, the top like obviously you'd only have even 1 from South America at that point, and you really start kind of breaking it down even further.
Well, no, that's the problem. Right? I think you have to give the guaranteed 2. I think you can't remove.
I don't
2.
think you do, but Valve does. Valve.
Well, it's like the problem is if you do 1, like I know what you're saying. If we're talking about the short-term best competition, giving as South America 1 would be correct. But like if you only give them 1, let's be honest, Beast Coast will have a monopoly of that for years. Like the competition in that region is so low that the only reason South America even has a good team now is because they were given 1 slot for majors. Like they were given the opportunity to have these players go to majors, and some of them came out good enough to be competitive at the major level. And so what would result if you gave South America 1 slot would be that Beast Coast would continue being a powerhouse in these majors, potentially placing top 8, and the rest of South America is just going to do nothing. Like that's the problem, right? You have to balance the potential of the region and what's necessarily correct in the short term. And the problem is I don't think you're limiting the potential of NA by giving them 2 slots. Like that's the difference, right? I don't think that moving NA from 3 to 2 is removing the potential. Like Fighting Pandas, like I want to see them not qualify for minor or major and see what happens. Like let's see what happens to NA when Quincy or Chaos gets the minor slot or even the major slot. JStorm gets the minor slot, and then I just want to see shit stirred up too.
I guess going off the idea of you have to go off facts in a way that would be almost a win-win for both parties is, to be fair, I saw this suggested in chat. I know I've heard it before too. Is that why not have the minor actually give 2 winners? The top
that's fine with me too.
Finishers going on to the major, so that way, it's not a bias. It's not Valve sitting here saying, "Oh, we think these regions deserve more than others." Obviously, it's still happening to an extent. I guess at that point, they would probably do a 3-3 and then 2 for the rest. So 3 Europe, 3 China, 2 for the rest, and then the top 2 from the minor would go on to the major. I could get behind that actually, because that is a little more streamlined there.
With your point in mind, last devil's advocate here. This major, we had 3 NA slots for the major and 1 for the minor, and we had 3 China slots for the major and 2 for the minor. Why not make it 4 and 1, 2 and 2? Why not give NA just 2 minor slots if you think they're like that close to being good enough? You know what I mean? Like I agree that NA kind of proved themselves. Why not give us 2 minor slots and give China 4 major slots and 1 minor slot?
Because the next major is going to be in NA. I'm tired.
Oh, is it actually? I'm not even thinking. I'm not even taking this into consideration. So
no, I mean that's obviously not even a good reason.
It's not a good reason, but the fact is, politics and crap happen. So
there you go.
I guess that's a good point too. But I don't think we have enough time to talk about that as well. So we have a new patch coming up. I think we should probably.
Yeah, we are running a little longer here, so actually we'll even skip this.
Too much to talk about. It's a good problem.
That's fair. Real quickly, going over the mid of the major, not surprisingly, Keeper of the Light was actually the most picked hero. Granted, only had a 37% win percentage, so that somewhat stood out to me. We did see, mixed in there was, of course, that Morphling, and specifically with the Earthshaker, but was there anything from the stats that stood out to you amongst more?
Rubik with the 21% blew my mind. I think TA with the 20% kind of surprised me. And Abaddon with the 25% win rate. A lot of these like super broken quote unquote heroes that I thought were like really good for their role, having really low win rates. Overall, I think it's just what stood out to me is how crazy a meta can develop over the course of 8 months. Like this patch, there's like these core heroes that are kind of still broken, but just having these heroes kind of pop out of nowhere this later on in the patch is always crazy to me. So other than that, nothing really major. The Coddle Night Stalker is always kind of funny. People were talking about that during the tournament. You used to have these two heroes be unplayable on the same team, and now they're like a sick combo. I think Coddle and Night Stalker together were super high win rate, but apart were really low, I think is what happened. So.
All right, before we move forward, actually, one thing I meant to do even earlier, but I'll do it now. With obviously Thanksgiving coming up and everything, it's good to talk about these charities here. So Prediction is helping to give back to the holidays. You can support the Center for Educational Innovation to help give kids life skills through esports. Pretty cool idea there. You can help make a difference for Giving Tuesday by going to bit.ly/CEIE Sports. That's bit.ly/CEIE Sports. So check it out for a good cause right there. Okay, moving forward, though, as far as the show is concerned. So the major, again, wrapping up. We talked about, we do got a big patch that is, as was hinted at least, should be coming out tomorrow.
Please.
Dear God, please. We'll see when in the day it happens, but should be coming out tomorrow. Obviously, it's been a patch in the making for a while now. We know there's at least going to be 2 new heroes coming with the patch, but as far as everything else, we really don't know, right? I mean, it's called the Outlanders. There's going to be 2 new heroes. How big is this patch going to be, I guess, is what we're really waiting to find out.
I want 7.00 size patch, personally.
I was going to say, do you think that this is actually going to be an 8.00? Is this going to be a whole reset?
I think it's potentially. I do absolutely believe it could be. I think even if it's just 7.23, I think it's going to be a pretty massive patch. I think I've predicted several map changes, like probably another objective on the map, either changing bounty runes or like adding another Roshan type thing on the bottom half of the map. I think that's like addressing a serious problem where like the balance of the map is too heavily weighed to the top side because of Roche, which also favors Radiant because of like their high ground advantage near the area. I think you have to make it so that there's objectives on both sides of the map, so it kind of results in less standoffs and more calculated decision making on what objective is better. And then also, I think there's just certain heroes whose kits are outdated. Like one that stands out to me is even potentially like Luna could use a rework where she's kind of like in the middle of being good at a casting and middle of being a right clicker. Like these heroes that kind of just don't have a place, like they aren't the best at anything. They kind of just are a hero in Dota 2. I think these heroes that are really specialized and really unique are the coolest ones. And they're like the best heroes for the game. Like when they made Viper have break on his W, suddenly that makes the hero offer something unique and cool to a lineup. And suddenly he has like a place in the meta. And I think that there's a lot of these heroes that have kind of just gone under the radar for a while. And I think another one's Ricky. Like, he's just a classic pub stomper that has no way to farm. So unless he's killing people, he just doesn't do anything. And in Pro Dota, that doesn't work. They kind of did that to Slark. They reworked that hero such that Slark like participated earlier on in the game and actually became a mid-game team fighter. But he's still the same hero, right? Obviously, you're keeping the hero's identity. But I think this is their big chance to change the overall specialties of these heroes that you don't see too much of. And I really hope they take this opportunity to turn the game upside down with these heroes, with the map, everything combined, rework buyback, maybe remove gold and GPM and experience per minute talents. I think those ruin the game, or experience percentage. I think there's a lot of things like that where they seem like minor changes, potentially shrines as well. But if you were to change all of it, the game would be unrecognizable in an exciting way. And I hope that's what they do. There's a lot of little rules like that, I think, that need to be changed.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really been expecting a massive overhaul patch until very recently. It kind of just hit me that it has been, because 7.00 was released back in I want to say it's been 3 years. I
think 3 years, yeah,
because I was at the Boston Major when the video came out, and that would have been December. I believe it was either December or January of 2017, December of 2016. So, it's been 3 years since 7.0 came out, and it's kind of crazy to even say, but that's when all the shrines and talent trees and everything were introduced, obviously, and that did kind of turn everything upside down. And I remember at the beginning, a lot of people were very unsure of it, but it's safe to say it was healthy. It certainly advanced the game, and it made things extra interesting for both the players and spectators alike. So I am getting behind the idea that this is going to be a 8.0 patch of sorts as well. And you're talking about some of these changes. That's certainly kind of going off your take on the idea of a second Roshan-like objective, and not to take from other games, but I feel like there are some good implementations in other games that you could certainly look at, and they have before.
They've already done that.
And they've already done that, exactly. So obviously people know what I'm getting at. I believe League of Legends specifically does have a couple of objectives where you can go for, and specifically these buffs that you receive from it. So I don't know if we need another objective that necessarily gives something as strong as an Aegis, but
yeah,
if it's just some kind of buff, whether that's an aura that buffs up your team for a minute of health regen, whatever, allows you to push, but I like the idea that just gives you more reason to ultimately leave your lanes and play around a PvE element that sets up for the ultimate PvP and the team fighting. I do think that would be a cool introduction. So a second objective, I think you and I are both certainly behind, would be something that I look forward to definitely in this patch.
The funny thing is, people before on my pre-podcast stream thing were talking about how they didn't like bounty runes, and I'm like, what do you not like about bounty runes? How often do you see a random 5-on-5 at 10 minutes into the game because of bounty runes? I think that kind of objective makes Dota a lot more interesting, to have that much consideration and that much reason for teams to fight each other. I think that's why Dota usually, there's obviously exceptions in every tournament, but for the most part, there's 1 or 2 kills every minute for a Dota game. And I think that's why, is there's just you're not allowed to not do anything. And I think that's a good thing. And I think that putting more things on the map as people get better and better at Dota is really the only way to continue that trend, to make sure, because people are getting faster with their decisions, they're moving faster. You just got to continue speeding things up, continue making it more exciting in ways that still fit what we all love about Dota. And I think up until this point, in all the major patches they've done a good job of that. And I think a lot of people every year have been skeptic about Valve with their they're like, God, the game's dying or whatever. But it's every time a new patch comes out, the whole community is always just wow. And I think that they're going to do that again this year. And I just have to have faith and belief that they will. That's why all of us who play Dota are still here, playing Dota. So. big one for me on that.
One other kind of interesting thing for me, and I don't know if it's actually going to happen with this patch, but because there's only a chance for with this 2 new heroes, maybe a rework, I suppose. But what I'm getting at is in Han, going back to my Han days, there were a couple of heroes that actually had very interesting mechanics in terms of no mana usage. There was actually a different resource that they used to cast their abilities, whether it was a combo-based system, simply almost roguelike from a World of Warcraft, or you actually just have like an energy bar in that sense too, or like a rage bar. I'm using these wild terms here, but I'm sure plenty of people know what I'm getting at there, where it's not straight up mana, it's instead a different resource that would be kind of an interesting, unique mechanic brought to a specific hero.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I'm totally ready for the new heroes to introduce new mechanics. You have the vector targeting that Pango introduced. You have the double ultimate from Willow. Like, I think that generally speaking, it's a nice, safe way to test out new mechanics in Dota. Like, after they added it to Pango, then they gave it to Darkseer, they gave it to Clinks. So I think you can use new heroes as an avenue to see how it goes, on a small scale. And I hope they take that opportunity in terms of creativity. I think every hero they've released in the last couple of years has been really fun and overall good for the game. People love playing these heroes. Nobody's really, if they're broken, you're always going to complain. But for the most part, like, nobody's ever complained that Monkey King's an annoying hero in the game. Nobody's ever complained that Willow's annoying, Pangalier's annoying, unless they're super broken, which is how it applies for every hero. But mostly, I think people really just enjoy playing these heroes. And I think I look forward to, like, whatever unique design they gave to, I believe, Spitfire and Void Spirit.
I believe so, yeah. Spitfire is actually, I'm really intrigued by. I'm more of a support player myself. It seems like she has some more support tendencies possibly, so that's going to be fun. But obviously the Void Spirit too has a chance to be very unique.
I just want to chuck some cookies at people, man.
Exactly, man. That's
what I'm saying.
It's kind of like, I remember when Dark Willow and I'm blanking on the name right now. Dark Willow. Who did Dark Willow come out with? Panglo, yeah. Lost the name. They were a little more like these silly animated, and obviously there was reaction to that as far as, did it really feel like Dota heroes? I think they fit in just fine, and Snapfire is, or Spitfire, I guess, is certainly that kind as well. But then you do have Void Spirit, who is
it
more
Snapfire or Spitfire?
I can't remember. What is it, Chad?
I think it's Snapfire. Snapfire sounds better.
That does sound better.
It's probably Snapfire.
Either way, it's whatever fire Snapfire. The Dragon Lady hero. Snapfire. It is Snapfire. Okay. Thanks, chat. Yeah, so you kind of have the best of both worlds there, I guess. And obviously Void Spirit. The spirits have been a old school thing in the Dota world for a while, so the heroes certainly we're looking forward to. But yeah, outside of just, obviously we expect a lot of balance changes as well, but there certainly are some gameplay expectations that we're hopeful for on top of that. So breaking news, by the way, I guess to an extent, we ex-Liquid Squad, a Kuroki crew, they've officially announced their new name, their new team. Nigma Esports is what they're going with.
Just now announced it, I guess, huh?
Literally, like 10 minutes ago at the most, I believe.
I was about to say, because they posted those pictures yesterday. Yeah, Nigma. Yep, Nigma is their name.
Yeah, they posted those pictures, as you said. They're kind of teasing about it. People had like ideas of maybe what it was, and so Nigma Esports. It's a new organization. It looks like kind of like the secret idea. With Puppy and Crew, so Kuroki going that route. And this seems like more and more of a thing, especially with these Dota players, right? They have success, and then all of a sudden they just form their own organizations. And obviously, really, they've all done very well, so why not?
I'm currently watching their trailer video. Looks pretty hype. So they got somebody professional to do it. Obviously, it's the same roster, so that they already announced that. There's no surprises there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Kuroki... You know, I guess I was talking. I don't remember who I was talking about it with, but I guess he's been wanting to do this for a while, make like his own organization. And every year when he debated it, Liquid just made their contracts even better. And he said that I was told that Liquid just had like the best contracts in Dota. And eventually there's really nothing more the organization can bribe you with to just keep you there.
Sure.
It's not like they're like trying to milk the organization or whatever. It's just every year Kuroki's like, I think I want to make my own team. And the organization's like, no, we'll do this. Yeah. And I think they just ran out of things to do. And at this point, you know, Kuroki's just such an icon in the community. And obviously just one of the best captains in history. And I look forward to seeing his version of Puppy's Secret, right?
Yeah, it's again, it's no secret. Well, for lack of a better word, that he is getting a little bit older, and of course, I'm sure he still has plenty of playing career left. But this, to me, speaks that he's setting up for the future. In Kuroki's case specifically, I'm sure all the players possibly got some hand in this organization too. But Kuroki, no doubt, the leader of it and behind it. And hey, we saw Team Secret just announce a CS:GO team today. And obviously, it's going to be more than just Dota down the line. That's the ultimate idea of these starting an esports organization, and when you're a player that's had massive success within esports already, you clearly do have an advantage, so why not take advantage of that?
That's a long-term commitment to their careers and impact on esports, and I think it's a really good thing to do, to kind of plan to be that's their future after they're done playing, and I think that's really cool.
Okay, so that's some fun breaking news right there. Again, we were hinted at it, and so we know now Nigma. I see people in chat, by the way, reacting to the live reactions. A lot of people don't like that name. I can kind of see why, I guess. People, typical Twitch chat making comparisons as far as what it's close to sounding like. I think it sounds kind of cool to me. You got Enigma here on the game, and obviously a popular one, so I think Enigma's fine, but hey, their choice. The patch, I don't know. It's. I guess there's really not much else to. I thought about maybe we could talk about needed buffs or nerfs, but again, we were expecting balances. We know Morphling Earthshaker specifically is going to get touched on. I'm sure Coddle's going to get nerfed. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of the expectations that everyone expects will certainly get addressed in this patch. Are there any specifics that you wanted to make a point of, or no?
Not really. Nah. I think I've kind of said enough.
Yeah. It's going to be tomorrow, man. And again, by the time you're listening to this podcast, if you're listening to on one of our podcast outlets there, obviously by then it could very likely be out, and that's pretty cool as well. Next week's show, again, we're not here to just go over all these patch notes. That's what Purge is for. After all, I watched this trailer and already hyped for it. But we'll definitely talk about ones that are more impactful for the competitive scene, certainly, and give our takes there. So that's what you have to look forward with that. But speaking of this week, later on in the week, at least here in the States, we do got Thanksgiving coming up, and we figured it would make sense to finish the show with talking about, in Dota sense at least, what we're both thankful for. So
there you go.
I'll start at first. What I'm most thankful for when it comes to Dota specifically, I guess a couple of things really. One, just even the opportunity to be involved in it and as talent and to get to go to these events and cast Dota 2 is obviously really cool. But also just honestly Valve in general when it comes to supporting competitive games like Dota and even CS:GO and a couple others. I know that obviously there's complaints sometimes as far as in Dota's case with the DPC season, some changes need to be made, blah, blah, blah. But the fact that they've supported as much as they have, and you kind of compare them to other companies that do have their competitive games out there, they have done a lot, in my opinion. And especially on the spectator side, having and being a caster and somebody that, spectates a lot of these events, having the ability built into the game to be able to freely spectate a lot of these tournament matches or even just simply public games is such a cool implementation that surprisingly other big companies and games don't even have basic versions of, let alone replay systems, whatever. So I do feel like Valve does an amazing job at supporting the competitive scene. Yes, there's still changes that can be done to better it in the end, but overall I am very thankful for what they brought to the table and allowed us to be able to enjoy the competitive scene for what it is moving forward. So there you go. Kind of a all over the place there, I guess. But
I'm just gonna make mine short and sweet. I just think that as a person in the world who a lot of people go through that, everyone does to some extent, goes through that period of life where they say like, what exactly makes me happy? What do I just love? Am I passionate about? And for me, I'm just so thankful for Dota because it's a game where there's like a personality type to the type of people that enjoy Dota. And I think it's somehow become this game that we're all able to bond over, even though some of us or most of us are super toxic about how we go about doing that. I think it's really cool that something like Dota could bring so many people to be so passionate and so just, it's a life-defining game. Like it's not the type of game that you just pick up and it does nothing in terms of the effect it has on you. It changes you to be a Dota player, and I think that that's what I'm so thankful for. So I'm thankful that somehow Valve and IceFrog and all of them have created this game that we are able to have change our lives together, and I think that's really cool.
Very well said. I think that means we're ready to come to a conclusion, though. So before we do, one more time, wanted to bring up, again, speaking of with Thanksgiving coming up, again, Prediction is helping to give back to the holidays. Support the Center for Educational Innovation to help give kids life skills through esports. You can help make a difference for giving Tuesday by going to bit.ly/CEI Esports. So wrapping up officially. Anything else you want to say, BSJ, before we do?
I just saw somebody in chat say that without Dota, they would have never treated their own depression. And I think that that's just one example of how impactful Dota is on our lives. And tomorrow specifically is going to be one of the days that as a community we appreciate the most. And I am super excited to be able to share this experience with everyone. And I can't wait.
Again, well said. So shout out to you guys tuning in. The Wombo Combo podcast officially coming to conclusion. Happy Thanksgiving to those in the States, and just hopefully in general, everyone tuning in, having a good week. And we'll see you guys next week where post-patch, is it going to be 8.0? Is it going to be something else? Either way, it's going to be pretty big. Certainly looking forward to it already. Congrats, TNC, of course, on the major victory. And thank you so much for tuning in to yet another episode of the Wombo Combo. So until next time, have a good night, guys. We'll see you then.